the amount of expenses that
Yeah.
I have, like software alone, just software last year, I spent $20,000.
Holy cow.
$20,000, like in just software,
Mm,
gone. And that's all
mm,
the software that we need in order to manage everybody that I've never needed before.
right.
But now you have to have it software for everything. You can't just like run your business on paper and a
Yeah.
pen. I liked it back then. I liked the paper and the pen. My business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Up in My Lady Business today. I am so psyched today because I have my lawyer on the horn with me today, Leah Weinberg, founder of Weinberg Legal. She is an attorney, recovering wedding planner, and the author of The Wedding Roller Coaster, which I'd love to discuss. After nearly a decade in the wedding industry, she has come back to her roots, and she's now a lawyer that assists the wedding industry people like myself on the ins and outs and how to make sure that your business is watertight and you aren't making bad choices and bad decisions in the the vicissitude of nightmares that this industry can be. I mean, it's funny. It's like, well, welcome, Leah. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I see like Taylor Swift has this. There's like a meme that and maybe not a meme. It's like a little video where someone says, what's the best piece of advice you would give to a musician who's trying to come up in the music industry?" And you say, "Find a good lawyer."
Mm,
And I would agree with that.
I need to find that clip and put
Yeah.
it all over my social media.
I don't think people realize how much they need a lawyer and how much lawyers have been such a part of my job since I started.
Yeah.
You need They didn't have LegalZoom when I started, so I actually had to go to a lawyer to like incorporate me.
I think that's honestly really good it sets a good precedent though for your business. Like, to go to a lawyer and not go to ChatGPT and not frankly go to LegalZoom also for stuff. Like, you have learned and understand and appreciate the value of a human lawyer who can help you protect your business.
Well, and it's interesting because I have friends who are, it'll come up that they're incorporated and they'll say they're an LLC and I'm an S corp. And I don't really know the difference between them or what, but I just know that when I started it, the lawyer told me that I should be an S corp. And so that's what I am. And it's like, I kind of worry when I hear that because I'm like, I don't know if that's right. I don't know. Like, I don't know what would be, what one is over the other one. Maybe you could speak to that. Like when people are going to incorporate and like when they're going to like once they've decided they're going to start a business and they are doing it, like obviously the best day to incorporate is before you even start doing business, I would assume.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Have some kind of entity. Some kind of entity is frankly better than no kind of entity. Also, I do like to point out, because folks get this, it's just not clear. I don't want to say folks get it wrong because it's just frankly it's not clear and people don't know. Having a DBA for a business, like if you are operating as an individual but you file a DBA, that DBA is not an entity. That DBA does not protect your personal assets. Just think of it like a brand name or almost like an alter ego of you as a person. So you need some kind of entity, whether it's an LLC, a corporation. There is a difference between a C corp and an S corp. So the S corp is, we're going like really nerdy.
I love
we're going
it.
nerdy already.
Let's just get in there.
S corp is actually a tax election. So you could be an LLC that is taxed as an S corp. You could be a C corp that is taxed as an S corp. My law firm is a professional corporation, a PC, that is taxed as an S corp. So depending on what business it is, what you're doing, do you have partners, that will all inform the type of entity, whether it's LLC, corp, C corp, partnership, that kind of thing. And then the decision to be taxed as an S corp is very financial dependent. So that's a decision you make with your accountant, and they'll let you know when the time is right to elect S Corp status.
So when you say a DBA, a doing business as, is that person usually doing that business under their social security number?
Yes, I think so. Sometimes though, I think some people I think might file an EIN under a DBA, but it's all not, it still doesn't protect your personal, even if you have a separate EIN associated with a DBA, but you're still an individual, it's not protecting your personal assets.
Okay. Yeah. Because the whole point of this is to protect your assets because like let's kind of do some catastrophizing. Like
My favorite game.
it is and I'm super good at it.
Me too.
I am incredible. I can see a problem that doesn't exist 85 miles away. And it's like I'm almost like, a little like turned on when it actually comes true, but it's usually bad. It's it's like my kink is knowing how I could be completely destroyed business wise. So let's say you have a job, you're like a regular person, and then you have like an Etsy store on the side where you knit things. And you knit hats for chickens, and they become huge. Everyone loves hats for chickens, and I just got that idea because have you read Yesteryear yet?
I
Or
haven't.
is it on your radar?
No.
It's like this, it's a good book, but I just finished it and there's a thing about chickens with hats. Anyway, so I knit chicken with hats for chickens, and all of a sudden they're huge and I'm selling, I'm making $1,000 a month selling hats for chickens. How could this backfire on me?
My initial thought is if you're like, let's say you're using yarn, let's say somebody has a really bad allergic reaction to the hat that you knit and they decide to sue you for their medical expenses.
Could that happen? I guess that could happen.
Anything could happen. This is the problem with America.
Yeah.
Is that anything can happen. Basically, anybody can threaten anybody. Most people can probably sue anybody, and people like to sue anybody and everybody over things. So, like, some of this is not far-fetched. But yeah, I like what's the worst that could happen? That's one of the things that
Yeah.
I think of
Like
if somebody has an allergic reaction.
You say the yarn is 100% wool, but it's actually it has a blend in it, and the person. So I mean, that's
Or
'cause if
maybe you don't disclose it. And, the thing is, the question always comes down to like, if I think I heard a statistic, well, backing up, I think I heard a statistic once that maybe 5% of all litigation that's ever actually filed ultimately goes to like a court and is decided in front of a jury or a judge. So
5%.
so like 95% of the time you're settling. But that doesn't mean that it's not costing you a lot of money in getting up to that settlement. It doesn't mean you're going to have a favorable outcome in the settlement. Like there's a lot of time, but I think so it's like people can always threaten to sue knowing that, yeah, at the end of the day, we're probably not ever going to really get in front of like a decision maker about this. We'll most likely settle before that happens, but they can still waste your time and money
Yeah,
with just
I've had
threats.
I've had a lot of nasty grams sent my way in my day where they're, it's like either they're a lawyer and they're sending me a letter like on their letterhead that makes it look like they're using their company as
Mhm.
a way to get back at their wedding DJ. And it's like, I don't think this is going to fly if this actually became anything. But I will say that it's funny, like, knock on wood, like we have never had anybody file a claim against us for anything at this point. And there's a part of me that kind of feels like if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now. Like the thing, and I didn't want to even like put this into the universe, but I'm always afraid, like the thing that I've always been afraid of is like the wedding just kind of sucked, like, and,
Mm.
it's like not really our fault, but they sue us anyway, where they're like, you
Yeah.
promised us a rager and this wedding sucked. And it's like, well, your family's terrible. I don't know how to, like I can't fix your shitty friends. Like I am sorry. And that's not, we go into every wedding thinking we're going to, slay the day. But,
Yeah.
sometimes they don't. And I feel like, I don't know. That's not happened. And so that's the thing that I feel like, because that's my biggest fear and it hasn't happened because I don't know how you would defend yourself
Yeah, I mean,
in those moments.
yeah, there's a contract provision that I put in that says that DJ services are a subjective service, and your DJ will use their professional judgment to figure out what songs to play, and like outside of,
Mhm.
the processional, recessional, first dance,
Yeah.
parent dance, whatever, like outside of that, the DJ, am not promising I'm going to play anything because I have to make decisions in the moment. So that can be something that's helpful and just bolsters your argument if that ever did happen. I remember I had one wedding. It was so weird. It was like my favorite DJ here in New York, and people just didn't want to dance. Like, they were all just standing on the dance floor talking all night long. And he was like looking at me. He's like, Leah, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm trying. And I was just like, I just don't think they want to dance. But they didn't tell us that. Like, we had no idea going in that this was
Well, and
just
you
going to be
don't know that as a
chatting.
client. Like you think you're
True.
gonna have a
Yeah.
dance floor, and then you get all
True.
these people together who haven't seen each other in a million years. It's like, oh, cool, you've got a family that actually likes each other. You have a family that actually wants to communicate with each other and
Yeah.
talk, and not just get wasted and bounce around to Rihanna. I mean, bouncing around to Rihanna is I need them to do that. I need that to maintain. But when that happens, because I've had a couple of weddings like that where like just everyone's just talking. I'm like, I'm just gonna play vibe music,
Yeah.
and it turns into a different thing, altogether. But yeah, the fear around that does suck. And so, but then it also leads to then having to get insurance to cover
Yes.
up all of the things I'm afraid that are going to happen.
Yeah. Insurance is an excellent thing to have in your arsenal. Understanding your insurance is important. Having a real human on the other end of at the other end of your insurance company who you can talk to and ask questions of is incredibly important, because sometimes it's simply a matter of, like, you get one of those scary letters and you're not sure how it's going to turn out. And so the first move can be to also like call your first call is to your attorney, second call can
Hmm.
be to your insurance company, and it's called putting them on notice of this potential thing happening, and they can kind of also help make you feel better by saying, oh, however this turns out, you're completely covered, so that's also a really important thing to have to back you up.
But if you are completely covered, will you still have to pay out anything? Will I have to pay like you? Will I have to pay the insurance company something? Like it winds up
It
because that's the thing I was
depends.
afraid of is like the suing everybody who's a part of the wedding, because they're
Right.
just trying to see who they can get some money from. Like there's a slip and fall in the bathroom and they
Yes.
sue everybody associated with the wedding. Are they going to try to go after me for like, you know, making them their feet get limp because they danced too hard and then they had drop foot in the bathroom and they stepped in some water, like, it's like this is the stuff where my brain can really go.
This is where your favorite contract provision, the indemnity provision, comes in.
Yeah, let's
I'm gonna
talk about that.
answer part
Okay.
one for a second, like thinking
Mhm.
about the insurance company. So let's talk about if it was actually your fault. Let's
Okay.
say, because I've heard this happening, guest trips over a cord that one of your
Mhm.
DJs placed.
Yes.
And what your insurance covers depends on the insurance. Like, it's like your health insurance too. Is there a deductible? Sometimes it can cover attorney's fees though. So like if you have an attorney involved in defending something, your insurance might also cover attorney's fees. Sometimes I think your insurance company can also provide a lawyer to get involved and sort of take things over as well. So that all depends on the specifics of your insurance company. But I love the example you provided of this had nothing to do with me, and yet I still find myself wrapped up in a lawsuit or the threat of litigation. And that's where your indemnity provision comes in. So the simplest way that I explain indemnity means that if you do find yourself wrapped up in a lawsuit related to the event that had nothing to do with you, your clients are going to be responsible for covering your legal costs in defending that action. That's why an indemnity is super important. And from a practical perspective, I've just started talking about this more too, but think about your clients have the relationships with everybody at the wedding. So if it's like Aunt Sally who is doing something and suing everybody, your couple has the relationship with Aunt Sally and could presumably go to Aunt Sally and be like, hey, Aunt Sally, stop being difficult here. Like, please don't sue all of our wedding vendors because it's costing us money. Like, that's absolutely a conversation that can happen.
But
And
they only
then
would pay if we're not responsible.
it depends. If it's just like if it's negligence, they should potentially still cover It depends on how it's worded, how specifically the indemnity is worded too.
Because the way I see it, like with us, like we have no control over who's going to be there. So I don't know if they're going to have a professional caterer or a professional this, that, or the other thing. And so, if they have, some fly by night caterer that, is using janky fryers or something and it shorts out the electricity, which then explodes my speaker. But then was my speaker not grounded correctly? Is it the electric in the building? It's you start kind of going into this place of
Yeah.
that and just the amount of like, like if somebody trips over a cable, because that's always my biggest fear. Like I'm a gaff taping,
Yeah.
like I'm like obsessive about gaff taping. And, if I feel like if somebody is tripping over a cable, they're in some place they shouldn't be. That's all. And so it's like if the cables are always within like the box of my
Right.
table, like you shouldn't be back there is sort of my 2 cents on that. But I will say the indemnity clause is always the thing people want to change.
I know. But you have to, it's so important. And this is what I've been like educating my clients on. Once you explain why it is the way that it is, they will understand. Like I've had to negotiate these provisions against other lawyers, and they initially pushed back and they were like, this is way too broad. And then when I actually explain to them why it is the way that it is, they give me the language that I want because it makes sense. So much of it is about actually understanding the indemnity provision and knowing how to defend it to your clients.
But part of the problem is that it's like almost I would say with very few exceptions, there's no like national conglomerates of wedding industry.
Yeah.
Like everybody, almost every there, with the exception of like caterers who might be part of a bigger, almost every single vendor there is like an independent small business artist person that, somehow managed to make the thing, the artistic thing they love into a job. Like we're not all business gurus. And so it's like when these people come back and they push back on these things, they want to remove these clauses. There's some people who are like, I can't push back on this because I need this gig because if I don't book this wedding, I'm not going to work this weekend. And so they kind of do and they decide to just strike it. And when that one person does it, then that client can then expect that every other vendor is also willing to strike that.
Yeah.
None of us have, I don't have you necessarily on retainer. I bring you in when things get bad, but I'm not going to like, hey, Leah, I'm going to pay you to tell me a thing I'm already going to say no to. Like I'm never going to agree to my contract. And that's the thing is that my contract has always been pretty solid.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, I know, like, I'm not changing anything. Like my best friend, it was a corporate litigator for a long time. So she really gave me a lot of the language to use and kind of told me how to talk about these things in a way that made me feel confident that, if anybody were to push back, I'm like, look, I'm not changing anything in here. Like I'm a small business and woman owned. This is all I got. I'm not going to like, jeopardize my business over, $1,700 to,
Right.
have, Hewlett Packard. And it's always these giant, like when we're doing like big corporate, it's like, they're the ones who are always trying to be like, here's a red lined version of your contract. I'm like, cool. Here's a clean one. Sign that. I'm not even going to look at this. Like, I don't have a legal team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but a lot of that is the way that I work with a lot of my clients. Like they get comments back and they don't know how to deal with them. And they just send me a quick email and like I respond back and it's, I'm not billing people.
Sure.
Generally, like for huge markups, yes. But like for a question or two, I'd tell people, tell my clients, I would rather have you get it right and like come back to me on it than like to be worrying that I'm going to be billing you for a 5-minute email. Like I want to get it right. I want to protect your business. So yeah.
That's interesting. I've never heard a lawyer be like that. Well, that's not true. I mean, I've had lawyers that have always been nice, but they usually come out swinging with and I think it's probably just to keep people from like abusing it. But,
I mean, I come from like the wedding planning world and hospitality. So it is in my heart that I want my clients to feel taken care of. So sometimes is that absolutely to the detriment of my wallet? Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the
always
day,
evens out.
I know it evens out. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with like the work that I do and the business that I'm building, and so that I can help people in this way. I truly believe in that.
Okay, so let's go back into a time machine. So how did you wind up at, like in legal and then also wedding?
Yeah, so I started adult life as a commercial real estate attorney, and hated it from very early on, and always was just kind of thinking like, I think I need to own my own business. And that was something that for years was just sort of in the back of my head. And I always was trying to figure out, okay, well, what's it going to be? What am I going to do? And I thought about opening up a doggy daycare or doing a dog walking service. I like to say I came dangerously close to enrolling in pastry school because I thought I wanted to open a bakery. Um, Fortunately, I have a friend who's a chef who stopped me from that because that was just not going to be it. And then honestly, one day, like event planning just kind of popped into my head. And I was like, oh, this feels like a really good fit for the things that I'm good at. And, it had nothing, frankly, had nothing to do really with like weddings themselves. And I sat on it for a little bit. And then eventually, after I hate saying this, but like after I planned my own wedding, I decided to start a business. I took it far more.
Well,
There's varying degrees of like how you can get inspired by that. Like,
yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, you seem to yeah, and there in Leah's saying that to anybody here who's not listening, who's not from the wedding industry that's listening to this, like, it is kind of a joke that people have so much fun planning their own weddings that they become
yes.
planners, and those people don't last 3 years.
Right. I
But
lasted 10 for the record and was
yeah,
very good at my job.
that's the thing. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like when I realized that I could be a wedding DJ. It's like, wait a minute, I'm organized and like I know a lot about music and I like bossing people around. Like, it all kind of, it was like the clicking of a bunch of things, which it seems like that was
100%.
also
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, and if you think about it's very interesting because it's not obvious on the surface, but being a lawyer and being a wedding planner have so many overlapping skills. It's dealing with like 40 deals at one time and having to know like at any given second, where are we in this process? It's troubleshooting, like what's the worst that could happen and preparing for that. It's dealing with difficult people. It's staying very calm under pressure. It's being really good at problem solving. So when something does go wrong, you don't go run and cry in the bathroom. You just get it done. And dealing with different personalities and how to like think on your feet. Just so many overlapping
Hmm.
skills. And so I eventually started my planning business while still working full time as a lawyer, eventually kind of weaned myself off of lawyering and was full time planning. And then, as the story goes, COVID happens, changed the whole landscape of everything. And my last wedding was at the end of 2022, and I launched a law firm at the beginning of 2023.
And do you focus exclusively on the event industry or do you take muggles? Do
I
you?
take muggles. Yes. Love the muggles. Yeah. So any small business owner, I work with people who do a lot of different stuff. Obviously, the bulk of my clients are wedding and event pros, just because that's where my network is and the people that I know and all of that stuff. A lot of my work just comes from referrals and speaking, and so that's the world that I live in predominantly. But yeah, I work with a lot of different small business owners, coaches, bookkeepers, interior designers, professional organizers is an interesting one. I did a webinar for a group here in New York and then like booked a bunch of clients from it. So now I understand the professional organizing world more than I ever thought I would.
Wow. I mean, I have hired a professional organizer. John got me one for Mother's Day, like pre-COVID. This is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's a person that will just come into your house. I was like, there's too much shit in this house. That we had a baby. It was like, and
Yeah.
so he hired, it was, I mean, I have her number. Like, we're like, I mean, she's come over. She helped me
Yeah.
unpack my house when I moved. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing how you don't know how bad you are at doing certain things until you hire a professional to do
Yeah.
them.
Who know how to do it?
What is a foible of the professional organizing community? Like, what's a thing that like, you gotta kind of deal with? Like, what's the catastrophizing around that? Breaking
Well,
things?
one of the worst things that I like, one of my like catastrophizing things is what happens if you throw something away. You're given permission to throw something away, but the person changes their mind, or you've disposed of something and then their like sibling wanted it and didn't say anything, and then their sibling tries to come after you even though you were just doing your job. So again, that's where that indemnity comes in, because if the sibling decides to sue you for throwing away, dad's, I don't know, antique motorcycle. I don't know. Silly example. But like, again, want to make sure you're protected from that.
What would you say? I'm just changing directions here. Like, going back to like in your experience so far. So you've been doing specifically this for the last 4 years?
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, have there been any like cautionary, cautionary tales around not having like working with non-insured vendors or not like or contracts or like clients with weak contracts? Like, have you had like a situation where someone's hired an uncle to DJ their wedding and something bad happened or whatever? Where
Oh, I haven't had no, not with like hobbyist, like frienders. I haven't heard any friender drama. Sorry, I don't have a better story for you there.
I really wanted you to say, actually, it's the worst. And whenever anybody hires people that aren't actually in the industry, it actually throws I mean, it
Well,
does mess thing up.
I mean, from a legal perspective, I don't have specific examples. I can give you plenty examples all day long from a practical perspective because I remember a wedding that I was planning and they decided to DIY their flowers, but it meant that both sets of parents of the bride and groom were like organizing the flowers on the wedding day and like everybody's setting up and I'm watching all of them just yell at each other
Mhm.
because they don't want to be doing it. They
Mhm.
are frustrated because they don't know what they're doing. And yeah, it just sort of like put a nasty damp. Yeah, if your friends and family don't want to actually help you on your wedding day.
I think they only here's the thing, I feel like they would wanna help you and they will help you if the whole wedding is DIY. Like, if they
Mm,
see everybody pitching in and everybody's doing, a kind of DIY part, but I think if you're at, like a venue where there's a bunch of professionals that are doing
mm,
everything and they all know what they're doing and, they're not yelling at each other, and then you're, like, in your mother of the bride dress and you're trying to, make sure that the colors are all balanced or whatever in the centerpieces. And it's like, there's a reason why people hire other people to do this.
yes.
Like you don't have to have a wedding. You don't
Yeah.
have to do this.
Yep.
Everything we're doing is a luxury.
Yep.
I don't live in any world where I think I'm curing cancer. Like I know the role that I fill, but I fill that role very well. And, so there's a lot of things you do not have to worry about or you don't even know you had to worry about them because I'm
Yeah.
already solving that problem for you before you even walked in the door.
Yeah, that's where I think, I mean, going completely in a different direction, but like that's where folks don't appreciate their wedding vendors. Like so many people that get married will never know all of the stuff that went wrong on their wedding day. And sometimes it's really bad stuff. I had a wedding where the entire kitchen staff walked off property because the head chef was such a jerk. They all left and the couple never had any idea. We had like the servers were helping like prep food. It was, we made it work and they never knew. But
Wow.
yeah, stuff can go really badly
Yeah.
wrong, and they
I mean,
never have a clue.
I've had weddings where they run out of food
Yeah.
and like they're ordering pizzas and like trying to get food just to get to the clients. And it's like, that's, and I promise you that didn't happen because the caterer, it probably, I can, if I was going to assign blame to that situation, it was like the client's like, well, can we just get rid of one of the servers or can we
Oh,
just,
yeah.
like, I feel like it's always trying to whittle it down to the bare bones of the service.
Yeah.
And that is always a problem as well because you aren't getting what that person does. You're getting a shadow of it and it won't work out the way that they think it's going to. But yeah, so this industry is hell sometimes. So so now that you're like lawyering in this place, do you miss the grind? Do you miss
No. And I see how, I mean, one of the biggest reasons what sped up my exit from weddings was how people were acting as we were coming out of COVID. Like, I know a lot of us had hopes and dreams that people would be more kind and compassionate and understanding. Because for those of us in big cities like Chicago and New York, we didn't leave our apartments for a year. We thought we were going to die. Like, we thought could die if we went outside.
Mhm.
Like, that is a trauma. And so we thought, okay, maybe people are going to be nice and understanding and kind to each other. And absolutely not. And stuff was so hard for the wedding industry coming out of COVID that those clients that had no grace for the vendor who was slammed because they were understaffed or, the florist who couldn't get these things because there was just no compassion.
Yeah.
And that I care so deep, like, just as I care so deeply for my current clients, you can imagine that I invested very emotionally in my clients who were getting married. And so
Mhm.
for that to be met with just
Whatever. You
nastiness,
did it. Yeah.
whatever, like, I was like, no, because I can't not care. So I
Mhm.
had to just kind of like pull myself out of the situation in order to deal with it.
Yeah, that's actually why I know you in many ways is because, like, in COVID, like, I kind of operated as an island. I didn't there was no I wasn't like I didn't know any national DJs. I didn't go to conferences. I just was just, "This is my world, and I know what I'm doing, and blah, blah, blah." And, I had gone to maybe a couple WIPA events, but I wasn't a member. And during when everything shut down, and then when in Chicago, we reopened at the beginning of July, quote unquote, like we would like part of the whatever was lifted so we can now have events. And they had to be a max of 50 people. Everyone had to wear masks. There was no allowed to be dancing. You could not dance. It was like footloose. And so we would have people that would be like, "Good news, we moved our wedding to the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, so we can have 175 people, so we can have the
Oh,
wedding." And it was like, I'm not going there. I'm
yep.
not sending one of my DJs to the Batan Death March to Kenosha, Wisconsin, so that they can have their completely irresponsible wedding. And this
Yeah.
was happening all over the place where, they would like have 80 people and they're supposed to have 50, or they're going to
Yep.
have, and I'm like, why are you guys agreeing to this? Like, I realize that we are all broke,
Yeah.
but we got PPP money. If you are a real vendor, you should have been able to get PPP money and be able to do the things that they gave us to be able to avoid these sort of situations. And it put us in a bad situation because we're like, you know, I can't send a DJ to a place where you're knowingly breaking the rules, because there was a lot of like news where they would like bust up weddings.
Yep.
They busted up like a 400-person wedding in the North Shore here in
Ooh.
Chicago. And I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, I cannot be the irresponsible DJ that did a wedding that gets on the
Yep.
news. Like
Yep.
that could ruin me, and I need to be here
Yep.
after the pandemic's over. And so I joined everything. I joined WIPA, I joined NACE, I joined ILEA, I joined anything that had even a tenuous relationship to the event industry. I'm like trying to get on the boards. I'm like trying to do anything because I'm just like, you guys, we need to have a code of conduct.
Yeah. Yep.
We have to have like a thing that is the baseline to even be in this industry,
Yep.
because I am trying to run a real business here, and you hobbyists and like whatevers are, you're ruining it for the rest of us. And so that's when I started going to conferences, because I knew that I found out those existed,
Yep.
and I started going to conferences, and that's how I met you through the conference, uh, jet set,
Circuit.
the circuit. But it was very much tied to trying to make some kind of baseline of what they can expect and what they have to do. It also brings me to I really want to unionize the event industry.
I know.
Have you heard anybody talk about that? Is that
No.
anything anybody's ever mentioned? Am I the
Not
first person?
unionized, no, but I hear a lot of talk of like wishing that there was some kind of regulation.
Well, I did my part. The part of the problem that we don't have regulation is that we don't have accurate NAICS codes. This is my
Mm,
this is my bête noire. The thing I am always talking about is the NAICS code. They're like for those of you who are not aware what a NAICS code is, it's the North American Industry Classification System, I think is what it stands for. And every industry has its own number that is, and it tells you like, oh, if you're going to call yourself, a carpenter, you have to have this insurance, and you have to, you'll probably be a 1099, and they tell you how to do everything. And like the event industry doesn't have a lot of specific NAICS codes. And like I file my taxes as independent DJ artist,
mm, hmm,
but it's a company that has 30 employees, and it's like
right.
it does, and there's nothing for photo booth, there's very little for
Yeah,
lighting, but the lighting stuff is for stage theaters, and that's not what we're doing. And
right.
so because there's not like that, it's hard to get regulation because they don't even see us as a real job.
Yep. Yep. And that also, to kind of bring it back, is reflected in legal stuff. Like, I always tell clients, if there's a dispute and they're trying to figure out, do I settle? Do I like risk it? Do we call their bluff? I'm like, you run the risk of getting an arbitrator, or you get the risk of a judge who doesn't understand the wedding industry. I've heard a story of, it was a judge, a florist was taken to court by a client. It was semi-related to COVID. Like, there was a last minute cancellation. To be fair, there was really no contract, and so it was not well documented. So they ended up in front of a judge, and a judge said out loud, "Who would pay $20,000 for flowers?" So, like, they don't get it. And you don't want to risk, like, you just don't want to risk being in that situation, whether it's a judge or even in arbitration, of somebody who doesn't get what you do deciding the outcome of, like, how much money you owe
Yeah,
somebody
they're
or don't
so
owe somebody.
outraged that you wasted $20,000 on it that they're like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's why I've said, like, could you imagine if a photographer who charges 10K was in a court? A judge would, like, be like, they'd look at the photos and they'd be like, that's not $10,000 worth of photos. Like, you don't want to risk that.
mhm. I
Which is
mean,
why
what
yeah.
happens if that happens though? I mean, wouldn't there be like prejudice or whatever and like the get a new judge or something?
I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know. Like, with court stuff, there you can always appeal. Arbitration, you can't, which is why when we get into discussions of like mediation versus arbitration, I tend to recommend the mediation, because arbitration is binding. You can't appeal it. And you similarly run that risk of being in front of somebody who doesn't understand what you do.
I mean, that kind of brings us back to the contract of it all
Yeah.
and like having like bad contracts versus good contracts.
Yeah.
And like one of the issues, dear listeners, that Leah and I have been dealing with is that there is a scourge of venues that are
Scourge.
it is a scourge.
I love it.
It is a scourge. It is a plague of locusts upon my business. Where a lot of venues are making or trying to get the individual vendors to sign agreements with the venue that we're going to behave and that we have to have certain insurance. And they also want us to then indemnify them, which we talked about at length in this
Yeah.
podcast. And, and we had one, we had this one venue that I don't have a great relationship with. I don't know if I should be saying this out loud, but whatever, fuck it.
You can
And
edit it out if you have
yeah.
second thoughts.
And I'm not going to say who it is, but anyway, this venue, they sent us this agreement claiming that they've had them like forever. And I've never signed one. Like, it's not anything we've ever done. And then I showed it to Leah and she saw like immediately that like the whole conference or the contract was about, they said like client or, vendor, but then in the indemnity part, it said client. And so it was like the client who's not been named in this document anywhere. So clearly they were using ChatGPT at the least offensive. They were using cut and paste.
Yeah.
And we actually sent it back to them and they wound up changing it. I mean, they wound up, pretty much doing, and it also had like indemnity that was like, it would make it so it completely undermined the contract that we have with the client. I mean, and I feel like they're just like playing lawyer with ChatGPT, and a lot of these vendors are like, what? Fuck it, I'll sign this thing. I don't care. And then
if something goes wrong, you are royally screwed, is the problem.
So if you get into this like circle jerk of indemnity, what happens? What prevails?
It's hard. I mean, so theoretically, if you have a good contract with your client who indemnifies you, and you are forced to sign an agreement where you're indemnifying the venue, if you end up paying the venue, theoretically, your client's going to probably reimburse you, assuming it had something that wasn't related to you. But also what should be happening is the venue should be able to go after the client and not you as the vendor. And it's just so, I mean, if there are any, I always put this out here. If there are any venues listening, I would like to get more in touch with the venue community to talk about these agreements, because I don't think they make sense. I think that you can get the protection you need from the contracts with the event host. Requiring insurance, always fine, with reasonable limits. Like, you want to make sure somebody's insured. And so if they damage your property, there's money for it to be fixed. Like, we're not arguing about that. It's these like full releases, the indemnities, the hold harmless, those kind of things. I just don't think it's that appropriate.
Mm-hmm. I don't either. We don't work for them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a financial relationship with them.
Right.
I have in it, and it's like, and you're also making it so I don't want to work there.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, and, with us, like, we get enough work that if a venue kind of crosses us, we can just not take leads from there. I mean, like I can say with impunity that we've stopped taking Trump Tower leads in 2015, I think was when we stopped doing that. So I can say that I feel comfortable saying that on a microphone that I will not work at Trump Tower. But, it does suck when you've got these venues where they're making these sort of decisions that are, hurting the people around them, and I get it, the reason why it winds up making a situation where I wind up having to pay the price for shitty vendors that, they got drunk on the job,
Yeah.
or it was too loud and they refused to turn it down. That's always one they're always bringing up. They're like, "I don't know, you're gonna turn your music down?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, who wouldn't turn their music down? Like, and it's like some people won't, and I'm like, "Cool ego, guy." I'm
Yeah.
glad that's the hill you wanna die on is, whether or not your Bruno Mars song is at 100 decibels consistently throughout the night, like, ugh. And also we've had a situation where people are, like, they're trying to demand us to have insurance levels that are just
Oh, some of that's getting out of hand.
tell me about that. How's that getting out of hand?
Uh, the insurance requirements are just getting higher and higher. And it's also not what they don't take into account is like what it is that you actually do. Like, what are you doing if you're just bringing a photo booth in or if you're just bringing uplighting in, like the level of risk there is so tiny, so to like require somebody to have like 10 million in umbrella coverage is absolutely outrageous.
Mhm.
So
We had a
yeah, it's
person
just
we had a venue a couple weeks ago that was they wanted us to have, like, one of the things was, like, $500,000 of something. I don't remember what it was,
well,
but it was
I think that one was cybersecurity, wasn't it?
yes, it was. Yeah, they wanted to have $500,000 in cybersecurity, and we had 375. Our limit was 375, and I'm like, if I'm causing any damage that gets into the tens of thousands of, like, there's the difference between 375 and 500 is negligible. I don't know how I could possibly commit $500,000 worth of anything. Like,
Right.
I don't
Yes.
know how I could cause I
Unless you
had the
light the building on fire.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they were mean about it. They were like, and then we have a venue, a wedding later on this year where we promised we get an umbrella. I'm like, sure, fine, we'll get an umbrella. It is so expensive to get an umbrella. Like, so expensive.
Ugh.
Like, and so what it winds up doing to me, and I think, is that when we have these contracts and you know, we realize we need insurance. So we get liability insurance. And then, I have employees, and, people can be litigious. So then I get EPLI insurance that'll cover me in case. And then, I try to get this umbrella, which I don't understand what it is. I don't have one of those, but I've got, I have a policy for my insurance. I have an inland
Oh,
marine, I
yes.
don't even know what that is. Like,
Oh, I recently learned about that. So when you are a vendor that has physical property, so whether it's like a DJ that's got equipment or a photographer who's got their cameras, et cetera, bands that have um instruments, those that kind of thing. There's two types of insurance. So one type covers you when your equipment is in storage. So like if your warehouse there was a flood and the stuff got damaged, that's actually one type of insurance versus if you are on site at an event and your equipment gets damaged there. Isn't that fascinating? I had no idea. So that inland marine is one of the two, is one or the other. It's so weird.
wow.
It's not
What a
one
way
type that covers everything. I know, what a
But
racket.
but that really screws you over because, it's like, so then here's the thing. It's like, okay, somebody sues me because of this. Okay, I didn't have the right insurance for that. So now I've got a new policy that I'm taking out that's going to cost me, say, $5,000 a year that I now have to pay for that. On top of the 10,000 I pay for liability, on top of the 4,000 I pay for EPLI, on top of so, like, I mean, I'm probably spending and my workers' comp insurance,
Oh,
whew,
yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars that just gets flushed down the toilet
Yeah.
of my profitability gone for policies that I'm probably most likely never going to
Yeah.
collect on.
Yeah.
And so then when they're like, okay, because my insurance used to be 1 million, and then I popped it up to 2 million because I was like sick of people kind of making noises about it. So it's been at 2 million for quite some time. But, it's like when we had one a couple weeks ago, they wanted 5 million. And I'm like, that's going to increase my premium by
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
that I'm like, if that, I think on the umbrellas alone, we're also like 8 to
Mm.
$10,000 to get that. And it's like, that's just not worth it to me to
Yeah.
spend that money to do that. But then let's say I make the decision, let's say I get my back up against a wall and I have to get an umbrella, then I have to raise my prices.
Right.
And then and then I'm raising my prices and the DJs are like, why aren't you giving us some of that? And it's like, I would like to. I would much rather be giving all of this money to you. And when you guys were independent contractors, I did. I paid so well when they were independent contractors.
Yeah.
But when you make them employees, the amount of money that just disappears out of my life that, and it's like, it is insane, the amount of expenses that I have. Like software alone, just software last year, I spent $20,000. $20,000, like in just software, gone. And that's all the software that we need in order to manage everybody that I've never needed before.
Right.
But now you have to have an insurance, you have to have some policy or software for everything. You can't just like run your business on paper and a pen. I liked it back then. I liked the paper and the pen. So what kind of clients are you looking for? Are you looking for new clients? Are you trying to make it happen?
Always looking for new clients.
Where can you work?
So my firm serves folks in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Virginia and Maryland, Georgia, Florida, Illinois, Texas, and California. And then for trademark or copyright stuff, that's federal. So I'm able to help anybody located anywhere, like if they want to file a trademark application for something. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just filed my trademark for Hot Flash Dance. I didn't know you did that.
Oh,
that's
amazing.
Yeah. That I filed a trademark for Hot Flash Dance, or I didn't know you did it.
No, that you filed for Hot Flash Dance.
Why do you think that's funny? Tell me.
Well, we've talked about it before. Women of our age going through the perimenopause journey. So that's amazing. Love it.
And what's funny is he's like, there's 4 other things that have hot flash in the name. That he's like, we might have problems with these. And I'm like, none of these are dance parties. Like some of them are like exercise classes and things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But I'm like, I think I'm going to win it. I need it trademarked. It's too good.
It is. That's super good. Yeah.
And what kind of businesses would be like your dream businesses outside of the wedding industry to do?
I do work. Like I said, I work with a lot of interior designers, coaches, accountants, bookkeepers. It was interesting. I had a client who's a coach, but who's also a former lawyer. And that was the first time I've prepared an agreement for somebody who was a former lawyer. And like our call, it was interesting because like our call to review the contract from top to bottom, most of the time I'm like explaining everything and I didn't have to explain anything, which was a very weird experience. But yeah, they were previously did family law. So like they didn't know about sort of drafting like coaching contracts and client service agreements and stuff like that. So that was interesting. But yeah, I'm open to working with a variety of people. I definitely learn, there's some professions that I kind of understand how they function better than others. Now that I've worked with multiple professional organizers, I have a very deep insight into that world and what their pain points are. So that's usually how I like to tell folks, like you want somebody that kind of understands your business already and you're not having to explain to them exactly what they do, which is why working with wedding and event pros is always so helpful because I obviously understand those businesses inside and out.
Well, and I've used my contract as a cudgel like over the years where anytime anything happens that takes up a ton of my time, like if I've got someone who tries to sue me or a former employee that is trying to come after me for something that like I would like to first also say in every single situation where I've ever had anybody try to sue me or try to do anything legal with, I've always won. Again, knocking on wood, but I always prevail because I feel confident in the way that I do things. And
that's so important. Yeah. When you do it correctly and right, and you have like the strong foundations in place and a strong contract, that goes such a long way whenever there's an issue.
I think that's also part of the reason why I was able to survive COVID because, my contract was ironclad. And so all these people are like giving me my money back. And I'm like, if I could, I would, but my contract says I don't have to, so I'm not going to. And then that's when I got there were so many bad reviews of me on the internet that called me a sheep I was a sheep in wolf's clothing. And I am a heartless bitch because I couldn't give back their deposit. And it's like, if the government had given a shit about the event industry and gave me money that I could have used towards that, I would have killed. I would have loved to have done that.
And also, all those people could have bought insurance. Hello.
Bingo.
Hello.
Bingo.
In 2019, every couple that I booked, I always gave them my same spiel, which is your venue might require that you have general liability insurance. And also separately from that, you can get event cancellation insurance, which protects your entire investment in your wedding. And I only had one couple take me up on it. And when they ended up canceling their wedding in 2020, they got every penny back in like 3 weeks.
And I think it's only like $300.
It is not that expensive. It's proportionate to how much your wedding budget is, but like you could have old prices, so don't quote me on this, but like you could have like a $150K wedding and maybe spend $700 to protect that whole investment. If
When
there
I
was
got
a
married in
blizzard, a hurricane, etc.
Yeah, when I got married in 2011, I think my insurance was $170. I was not having a $100,000 wedding or whatever in 2011. But I do think that, but again, it's like the insurance agent. Oh, I will say we had 2 people who had event insurance, who had event insurance that canceled, and we did wind up getting all of our money, which was really, they were like, we got insurance. We're going to make it rain on you, because they knew how awful our lives were at that point.
Yeah.
But it really sucked. Is there anything else you want to plug? How do people find you?
Yeah, my website is weinberglegal.com. I am at the Leah Weinberg and at Weinberg Legal on Instagram. There's a spot on my website for folks to sign up for a free consult if anybody is listening and has burning legal questions or wants to feel a little more protected and solid in their business. I am always happy to chat.
One more thing. How do you feel about the ChatGPT Claude legal using AI for legal advice?
Don't do it. It's not legal advice, and don't do it.
Yeah, tell me why.
It gets things wrong. It is incomplete. It doesn't always understand it doesn't understand nuance. It just wants to make you happy. So it's going to tell you what you want to hear, even if that is not legally sound advice or even just sound advice. Take the legal part out of it. Literally yesterday, I was watching John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. I think it was 2 weeks ago, had an episode on AI chatbots. And just watching that will make you never want to rely on AI for anything ever again.
I want it gone. I want it gone completely. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's real bad. All right. Well, thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. I mean, everybody can follow it. But if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. That's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.